Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Green Nurse Podcast, where we bring hope and inspiration for growth and healing. We are here to change the dialogue and stigma around what it means to feel good and be high. And you've heard me say it once, you've heard me say it twice, and I will say it forever. H is for hope, I is for inspiration, G is for growth, and H is for healing. And I'm going to pull up just a little video of what we do here in the cannabis space as nurses and how we are truly changing the paradigm of healthcare, one hug and nug at a time.
Change the paradigm of healthcare.
The Green Nurse is a holistic cannabis nurse that teaches on the endocannabinoid system and the safe utilization of cannabis and other progressive tools to help people reach a better quality of life.
I'm the founder of Holistic Caring. We're based here in California, and we do educational programs and case management for patients on how to use cannabis therapeutically as a medicine.
We're also here to decrease stigma around what it means to feel good and be high, hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing.
As the founder of Holistic Caring, I basically oversee the whole ship. And what we're doing is progressive education.
Cannabis actually supports all 11 organ systems, our immune system, and all the neurotransmitter signaling systems that give messages to tell our body to either do something or not do something. Because the plant was prohibited, it prevented health professionals, doctors and nurses from learning about cannabis as medicine.
I want to change the paradigm of healthcare and us paving the way into a new vanguard of medicine. And I'm excited to really bring this into light. There's a company called KetaMd that we're merging with, and we will now be doing global education.
It's about education, it's about empowerment, it's about teaching people how to feel good, bridging the gap from what they're not getting from traditional medicine, utilizing different plant medicines, adaptogens, tips, tricks, hugs, and nugs of information to support and nourish the most important system in our body.
And it's a lot of soul work, a lot of love, a lot of discipline, and meditation. I'm using my life work as a testimony to others to learn how they can be their own hero and then go help heal the world.
And we are, as nurses, the game changers. Growing in health and growing in cannabis. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We have been highlighting cannabis nurses and cannabis health professionals as we are truly in revolutionary times where we're changing how we approach and take care of patients. Part of that is sharing compelling stories of healing, or what I like to call real world evidence, with real cannabis nurses who are actually in the space doing the work, teaching patients and providers how to safely use this plant. We are stigma fighters. We talk about things that people don't want to talk about because it is so crucial and critical to talk about these various things to decrease stigma for healing. I'm really, really excited to introduce my co-host, cannabis and psychedelic nurse colleague, Carey Lee Leur. Sorry, Care Bear. So Carey Lee is CEO and founder of Soul Thrive Health and Consulting. She's one of our superstar supervising nurses at Holistic Caring in the Green Nurse. And of greatest note, she is a leader in the psychedelic nursing space as director of nursing at KetaMd. She is committed to educating and connecting humans to plant, fungi, and bioenergetic medicine, so thriving becomes attainable and sustainable. Welcome back, Care Bear.
Wow, so thank you for having me back.
You have so much
good to be back.
And it is. So let's give our viewers a hug and a nug about what you do in the cannabis and psychedelic space as a nurse before we dig into one of my favorite topics.
Well, I do lots of one-on-one coaching with patients, obviously connecting them to various medical programs, cannabis medical programs. But we also dive in deeper and really get into their lifestyle practices. I'm really into kind of, the biohacking thing. So it's like getting back to basics, getting back to integrative, getting back to the root. We want you to, get really great sleep every day. We want to look at what your daily movement is, what your nutrition and hydration is. What is your social life like? What is your work life like? What is your spirituality like? The whole human being. I don't want to just focus on what the problem is. I want to focus on where is it stemming from so that we can, fix it and correct it. I don't want to just slap a Band-Aid on it. So that's pretty much what I do in a nutshell.
Yep, I love it. So you teach lifestyle as medicine, utilizing your basic 5 to thrive. Love that. Totally 100% exhibits the art and science of nursing, right? You think about it. The art is what? Figuring out the easiest way to educate patients to get them to make changes to improve their health, right? Yes. The science is there and the science is evolving. And so that's what's so great about cannabis nursing is that we do truly exhibit the art and science of how to take care of patients. We make it fun, we make it educational, we decrease stigma, and we have a lot of laughs because, as cannabis nurses here at Holistic Caring, many of us are also medical cannabis patients. We've been on the other side of the bed and we know exactly what it's like. We know what it's like to be plagued with fear. We know what it's like to be plagued with stigma. We know what it's like to be afraid to say you feel good using cannabis as medicine, right? So these are really important topics. And we're going to talk about something today that I think is very near and dear to my heart. And it's something that people don't talk about all the time. We're going to talk about cannabis and psychedelics together and how both of them can be used together to work and help with many different conditions. And today we're going to focus on one particular condition, agoraphobia. It's not something that you hear people talk about all the time. I did a show on this last year, and I just thought it would be very appropriate to talk about because it stems from anxiety. Agoraphobia is an anxiety disorder that develops after one or more panic attacks. And so we all know that we're in traumatic times right now. There's been a lot of trauma, not only in our healthcare, but also in political, we're in traumatic times. And it's really, really important that we focus on these things because bottom line is, we don't die. We die of old age related diseases that contributes to inflammation. And we know the number one thing that contributes to inflammation is stress, right? Stress. So how can we manage stress to prevent these things from snowballing into these disease processes? And cannabis is a great tool. So let's dig into a little bit about agoraphobia, what it is, the definition, the symptoms, and how cannabis can work and what's the science and research around it. So to start, right, we said agoraphobia is an anxiety disorder that is after one or more panic attacks. So it's defined, agoraphobia is defined as fear of places and situations that might cause panic, helplessness, or embarrassment. So what kind of symptoms do we see, Carey?
Well, we see fear and avoidance of places and situations that may cause feelings of panic, entrapment, helplessness, or embarrassment. You fear both the anticipation of going to these places or events or being around these people or the actual situation. So anticipatory anxiety is a real thing.
It really is.
Oh my
Well,
goodness.
It's actually been studied and researched with nausea and vomiting with chemotherapy patients. So chemotherapy patients have that anticipatory nausea before they actually go to chemo, right? You think about that. It's real.
Absolutely.
And so this is a real thing too, is when you have a visceral response that you can't help, that you don't know where it's coming from. It's usually an embedded trauma from years and years and years ago, unprocessed emotion that gets stuck in the body that creates a physiological response that spirals into that anxiety. So for example, right, fear of both anticipated and actual situations such as what? Being in enclosed or open spaces, being in a crowd, using public transportation such as a bus, a subway, or an airplane, standing in line, being in public places, right? So the diagnoses is really interesting. People can say, oh, I'm agoraphobic, I don't want to leave my house. And, that's kind of like similar as to what happened, during the pandemic. But to be diagnosed with true agoraphobia, you need to have intense anxiety or fear of two agoraphobic situations, such as those listed above. You also need to display avoidance behaviors related to those specific situations. And so for an example, being, that you don't like going to the grocery store, so you avoid going to all stores, right? And so then what can happen, right? You don't eat, you don't get out, your diet may, may suffer in your health as well.
Absolutely.
So, and it's a pretty rare, right? There's less than 1% of adults in the United States have agoraphobia, according to the National Institute of Mental Health. So the interesting fact about that is that agoraphobia tends to be an end result of accumulation of various mental health disorders, whether it be anxiety, panic, depression, right? It accumulates, it happens over time. Panic attacks that happen over time. And then people don't want to go out because they're embarrassed and they're ashamed. So to be diagnosed, like we said, you have to have the avoidance behaviors related to these particular situations. Interesting is that agoraphobia affects more females than males, right?
Interesting.
3.4% of all cases of diagnosed agoraphobia are females, and 1.4% are males. And of the population. So nearly 41% of agoraphobia cases are thought to be severe. And it can be very, very disabling for people, and disabling to the point where they don't get help and they're stuck in their homes and they can get really sick and suffer. And so there's a spectrum of the severity of symptoms, and it can change over time. So what about the history, Care Bear? We got some history of agoraphobia, because this has been around for a
there's
while.
Documentation going back to the late 1800s, back like 1871. A German psychiatrist, Carl Westphal, introduced the term. He described people living with panic sensations when challenged with just the thought of being in public. Charles Darwin was one of the earliest noteworthy people known to have had agoraphobia. So really interesting.
Yep. And so there's two types of agoraphobia that's listed. And one of them is panic disorder with agoraphobia, meaning they have panic disorder, don't want to leave home, or agoraphobia without a history of panic disorder. So this diagnosis increases your chances of, you probably already have some of these other disorders, but also increases your chances of developing other types of anxiety disorders, such as other phobias, social phobia, post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, panic disorder, and substance abuse, addiction, right? Yeah. So mentally, Care Bear, what do people go through? What are the mental effects of agoraphobia?
Well, I mean, it can definitely have a negative impact on how they function or behave. In the workplace, at school, and even at home. They may try avoiding situations that could potentially trigger a panic attack. And then, that would eventually lead to depression, so.
Yep. And so then there was a study that we found in Cannabis. It was a study with 60 patients that had panic disorder and agoraphobia. And the researchers were trying to determine the occurrence and severity of depressive and anxiety symptoms. So of these patients, 68% had a current or past major depressive episode. 85% suffered from a major type of depression, and 33% had a primary major depressive episode. So untreated agoraphobia can get to the point that impacts your life extremely negatively, or the fact of hiding, of avoiding these situations can have an impact in your life. Actually, a lot of the individuals that have been diagnosed with agoraphobia failed in school, have problems with loved ones, have lost jobs while they're trying to deal with it and cope with it. And like, for example, like I said, waiting in lines, leaving home alone, or even leaving home with people that they don't know, open spaces like bridges, right? So you could be leaving your home with someone you know, right? And you could be okay with that. But leaving home with people you don't know, okay, that can also be a trigger.
Well, or knowing that you're going to be attending a function or an event of some sort,
Right.
even whether it's a small or large group of people that you don't know, that can be extremely triggering as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep. And so then there's a lot of other signs as well. These are like not classic signs, but other signs of agoraphobia. And people that have this, they do self-checks, because when you look at treating it, a lot of it has to do with cognitive behavioral therapy and reprogramming your mind. So other signs of agoraphobia may include: you need someone to go with you to certain places, you avoid the situation, you're extremely distressed, but you endure the situation anyways. Your anxiety or fear is in wrong relation to the situation's actual danger. Your avoidance or phobia typically lasts more than 6 months. You experience extreme distress or have issues with work, social situations, or other areas of life due to anxiety, fear, or avoidance. And any phobia will likely to cause you any phobia will most likely have you avoid what makes you scared. For example, people that have fear of spiders, right? So just looking at a photo of a spider can cause those phobia types of symptoms.
Yeah.
And so the main symptoms, like we said, is avoidance. People have anxiety and panic, and the panic attack symptoms can include sweating, difficulty breathing, dizziness, fainting, tingling, nausea, vomiting. And, severe agoraphobia is exhausting. It feels like everything that you do in life is extremely challenging. And the thing is, treatment, okay, so everything you do in life is challenging, and the treatment's challenging. Why? Because it requires you to face your fears, right? You have to look at it, right? You can't.
You have to
look at it. There's no other way. So we have conventional types of treatments, and they work great, but we're going to talk about how you can add plants to it and make it work better, right? We're all about complementary, about incorporating plant medicines into the conventional space to bridge the gap from what we're not getting and to make those specific therapies work better. So some of these conventional therapies or treatment types that exist for agoraphobia include psychotherapy, exposure therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. So as we all know, psychotherapy or talk therapy is where you meet with a mental health professional or a therapist regularly, and during that therapy, you talk about your fears and what contributes to them. Doctors often prescribe psychotherapy with medication for maximum effectiveness, and generally it's a short-term treatment, right? Until you can cope with your anxiety or fears. I've seen it work for some people, and I've seen it not work for other people. So, and then there's exposure therapy, right? Which is another type of a treatment. And Carey, this is really cool with this. Exposure therapy, we've talked about this a lot, and we've actually done this as nurses, right? Exposing ourselves to situations to overcome the fear. It's actually, there she has it. She has the wand.
I have the wand. The airport, remember?
The airport. So these are really, and we're going to share a story about the airport, but this is a cool story. So exposure therapy, actually, what it actually does is you gently expose yourself to the place that causes you the fear. Okay. So and during this therapy, you're exposed to it, you talk about it, and over time you sit with it, right? You think about it. The healing is in the feeling. Really hard when you're going through it. No one wants to be exposed to a thing that makes them feel horrible. But listen, if you can move through it,
it'd be terrifying.
Exactly. But this is where cannabis and psychedelics can totally help you process being in that specific situation with a therapist guiding you, having, using cannabinoids and other psychedelics, microdosing, which we'll talk about in a minute, and how it can help you to move through those feelings to get to the other side. Right? You're exposing yourself. What these plants do is calm your central nervous system down so you can process the emotion and go forward, right? You're not stuck in the story of the loop. And we're going to get into the science of that in a minute. Cognitive behavioral therapy is another type of psychotherapy used for treating individuals with agoraphobia, right? It helps you understand distortion. Cognitive behavioral therapy helps you to deal with that gives you the tips and the tricks and the hugs and the nugs to reframework what's triggering you, right? So a lot of times our views become distorted because we're brought back to the past, to a traumatic experience, and we can't process our emotions from that place when we're in fight or flight. So cognitive behavioral therapy may teach you how to cope and work through these stressful situations using healthy thought patterns instead of distorted ones. And this allows us to gain some control back into our lives. So here we go. We're gonna go on the pharmaceutical bandwagon now. Now I'm not anti-pharma, however, just like everything, it's really important for people to know that pharmaceuticals, can be helpful, but they're not helpful for a lot of people. What we see over time with a lot of mental health problems is these pharmaceuticals, we see patients over and over and over again in our practices that are refractory, meaning that these particular pharmaceuticals that they're trying over and over and over again don't work. So medications may help by altering the way a patient's mind reacts to anxiety-producing stimuli, but they can have negative effects on the sufferer, such as side effects, right? So, the SSRIs, the Prozacs, the Paxils, they have the dry mouth, the drowsiness, the insomnia, the nausea, the diarrhea, the dizziness, the agitation, the nervousness, the erectile dysfunction, or the reduced sexual desire, right? So you think about, these are some of the pharmaceuticals that are being prescribed: SSRIs, SNRIs, Cymbaltas, all of these SNRIs that they can cause side effects such as serotonin syndrome, which is rare, but you can have dangerously high levels of serotonin when you're taking specific pharmaceuticals, right? And over time, this can be really dangerous. Yeah,
and it can, because I just want to throw this in there. It's like when it goes back to the treatment resistant. There's a third of our population in the US that have treatment resistant major depression. And so what happens to those people? These medications are not working for them, but yet they're experiencing some of these side effects, which then it can lead to pharmaceutical trauma. I mean, it's it's devastating. It's devastating to watch. There's a place for it. Don't get me wrong. I'm with you on that. But what about that third? What about that third?
Yeah. So the pharmaceutical trauma, just really interesting about that, is that it becomes a cycle in a loop. Okay. So you're prescribed pharmaceuticals for a condition. It works for a little bit. It may not work at all. You get a side effect. They prescribe another one. Right. And then basically you have to think about it. They're practicing medicine, right? So they're using these pharmaceuticals in a way based on what they learned to help you. Right.
Yes.
But what they're working with is a single isolated molecule. Cannabis, on the other hand, like we talk about, is pleiotropic. It works. It's got multiple different molecules all coming in, working on multiple different physiological systems all at the same time. Right.
Yes.
So cannabinoid therapeutics for agoraphobia. Absolutely. There is evidence that cannabis can help with anxiety disorders and phobias. And agoraphobia is both. It's an anxiety disorder with a phobia and where you want to just stay home. So cannabinoid therapeutics, right? It's natural, fast acting with fewer side effects. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, some types of products that, people have been noted to use, and we'll talk a little bit about the science, and is high CBD products, high full spectrum. They're chemo type 3, which is high CBD, low THC, right? Lower THC products, because it can be used to reduce stress, build resiliency, relieve anxiety, eliminate panic, improve focus, help people to think more clearly, provide a calming effect, prevent tension and fatigue, nervousness and nausea, helps patients to be more focused and thinking more clearly, provides that, that calming effect, helps people to adapt to stress. The other positive effects include what? Relaxation, elation, reversal of thinking from negative to positive, right? But there are, with cannabis, there can be some risk, and that's mostly, I've seen, it's dose dependent and product dependent, and if you're taking too much THC, it can have the opposite effect, right? And cannabis can help us process emotions, right? It helps our thought patterns and how we can control. So patients that use cannabis, they can use this medicine. We teach self-titration and can help people to control their symptoms independently. So knowing about cannabinoid therapeutics, knowing how you can use it and to relieve your symptoms independently can actually be safe, right? Can relieve the suffering, relieve the fear, relieve the panic, and empower patients to take care of themselves. And that's what we love to do. We don't want to just hand out prescriptions, right? We want to give information and teach you how to apply it to your life, real world evidence.
Yes, high five to that.
High five to that. So one of the things, too, when we are going to talk a little bit about THC, and there was actually some information that I found out there on best strains to use for agoraphobia, if you're going to be using inhalation or if you're going to be using high THC products. So what they recommend is indica, right? Indica strains tend to be more calming and relaxing, providing you with that whole body feeling. So it can work effectively in treating anxiety and panic attacks that are associated with agoraphobia. And in, regular conventional therapy, that's what they're doing. They're looking to reduce anxiety and panic. So CBD and medicinal cannabis is, like we said, is very, very beneficial, and it can help a lot. And so the indica, so when you're just deciding on a strain, if you're going to consume cannabis in the form of inhalation, you want to look at, things, you want to look at the ratio of CBD to THC, right? Too much THC can induce anxiety. And so indica generally tends to have the terpenes that are a little bit more calming, a little bit more sedating, not as elevating and amped, right? And some of the strains that we have listed here, Carey Lee, are what? They're indica.
I mean, the first one is my absolute all-time favorite for that very purpose, anxiety, Girl Scout, anything from the Girl Scout cookie family. And then Black Widow, Big Bud, Afghan Kush. So there's lots of choices. I'd also like to just throw in there about the CBD. It's something that I teach all of my patients. Make sure you have something as a rescue. So if you do have too much THC, if you do have that moment where you're feeling that THC-induced anxiety, you can, utilize a full spectrum CBD tincture under your tongue as a rescue, or even as in a vape. CBD will, reduce those psychoactive effects, reduce that anxiety, and help pull you out of that.
And the part that's really great about CBD, I love that. And the part that I always like to educate people on is people get nervous. They'll say, oh, no, I don't want to do CBD. It's going to ruin how THC affects my body. I'm here to tell you, no, it won't. CBD helps you to dial up and dial down how it affects your brain and how, like, for example, you can control your experience using CBD. Truly, you can. And I love CBD, exactly like Carey Lee say, having a tincture and having an inhalation, because inhalation instantaneously it works. You don't have to digest it. It's right into the bloodstream.
Absolutely.
Really good. And then we have the daily 5 to thrive. I mean, lifestyle changes. When you're working with any type of condition, whether it be, physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual, you need to look at your lifestyle, and everything that you do or don't do in your life affects your endocannabinoid system and how cannabis is going to work in your body. So some of Carey Lee's daily 5 to thrive here.
I mean, your diet, what are you putting in your body? What are you fueling your body with? Like both what you're eating and drinking, because ultimately we know that the majority of our serotonin, this is our happy molecule. That's what all those anti-Ds are created to boost up that serotonin, right? But the biggest amount of that serotonin is actually produced in our gut. So if you have like a really gnarly diet, you're eating a lot of processed foods, a lot of fast food, salt, all of that yuckiness, it's literally going to kill the healthy bacteria in your gut, thus reducing your serotonin, thus making you not feel very well.
Makes sense. And for the newbies that are out there, if you're just tuning in, right, you got to think about, if you think about the endocannabinoid system, it's the largest neuroregulatory system in our body. It regulates all 11 organ systems, our immune system, and all the neurotransmitter signaling systems that give messages to tell our body to do something or not do something. So the microbiome, which Carey was just talking about, right, in our enteric nervous system, goes from our mouth to our butt, that's our enteric nervous system, communicates to our central nervous system via the endocannabinoid system. So gut health is really, really important. They call it your second brain. So every single thing that you put into your stomach, you need everything that you consume, anything that you put into your mouth, it's either supporting your endocannabinoid system or it's not. And it's as simple as that.
And it's life. We don't want to like cut everything out, right? So I really just try to tell people, look, you know what? I mean, let's live, let's feel it. There's a lot of yummy, tasty things like experiences. All the foodies out there are like, no, oh my gosh. But like, seriously, maybe consider doing like an 80-20 or a 90-10.
80-20.
80% of the time you're following this, 20% of the time, gotta let loose a little bit, just flush it out with a little extra water, right? A little extra hydration, a little extra movement.
Little extra CBD, right? Little extra
CBD.
Yes. So
Absolutely.
nutritional psychiatry is a real thing. And then we talk about motion is the lotion, so exercise on a regular basis to keep the production of brain chemicals that make you feel relaxed and happier, right? That anandamide molecule that mimics THC, right? So you think about that, you want to release those hormones. And so exercise does that bliss-like molecule that gets released when you exercise. The endorphins is stimulated by the endocannabinoid system. So deep breathing, right? So deep breathing, what does deep breathing do? It resets your central nervous system immediately, right? It helps to decrease that anxiety. You want to decrease the vagus nerves. We talked about meditation and, diet and nutrition. Now I want to dig into something very important because I don't want to go over too much time. We have another 20 minutes, but really important to me is in the cannabis space, a lot of us cannabis nurses are also psychedelic nurses. Cannabis personally gave me my life back. Microdosing psychedelics and experiencing psychedelics taught me how to live again. Really taught me how to live again. And that's a whole other show.
Amen.
But it's
wow.
And the more, and Carey, we've been to a couple conferences, we went to Patients Out of Time, and we've heard a lot of really good up and coming information on how psychedelics and cannabinoids being used together are really improving patients' outcomes. Cannabinoid therapeutics does completely 100% support psychedelic therapy. Because you think about what you're doing is you're working with brain chemistry, right? You're working with your brain chemistry and the endocannabinoid system. We make molecules in our body like the plant, and we don't make enough of our own, our body gets out of balance. And so when you're working with brain chemistry and you're using these different substances to help open up these neural pathways, which we're going to talk about in a minute, you need to be really careful, right? You need to be really careful. And CBD is the great influencer. It's an amazing molecule that can help. It works on 76 targets in our body. It works on all of the neurotransmitter signaling systems, the dopamine, the serotonin, the epinephrine, the norepinephrine, the acetylcholine, the GABA, the glutamate. So we have all of these different neurotransmitter signaling systems that CBD works on. And so it's really, really important to when you're thinking about exploring psychedelics for health and wellness and managing symptoms of chronic illness, also think about learning about the endocannabinoid system because they definitely go hand in hand. So I want to talk about ketamine because Carey Lee is director of nursing at KetaMd. She trained me at KetaMd. Really, really excited. I've enjoyed having the personal experiences and doing the research and development with the company, as well as guiding some patients on this home treatment that is now being offered. So ketamine is very different. It's not psilocybin. It's a pharmaceutical. And so I'm going to let Carey, talk a little bit about what ketamine is and how it can help.
Thanks so much. So ketamine is an FDA-approved medication used primarily in surgical procedures for anesthesia, but it's also been used in the past for pain control as well. And it's also got, off-label use for treatment-resistant depression. They just discovered over time, wow, just like with many other medications, there are other benefits to utilizing it. So, scientifically, what ketamine does in the brain chemistry is, first of all, neurogenesis. It helps to promote new growth of brain cells, your neurons, which is huge. So the second part of that is synaptogenesis. So it helps create these new pathways, synapses, and this is the way that these new brain cells communicate back and forth with each other. Part of our ketamine therapy, before you even have your first experience and you've seen your medical provider, it's to talk about what your goals are, what your intentions are for the treatment. What are you looking to accomplish and achieve? It kind of helps set a map, if you will, to help you during that experience. So this is, the formation of the brain cells and the pathways. This is where those reinforcing those new healthier habits come into play. So another thing that it does is it actually calms the neurotransmitter in the brain known as glutamate. So this, the benefit of that, it basically reduces that negative mental chatter, that story loop that keeps repeating over and over again. And then it also then increases your mental clarity and focus. So We have this area in the brain called the default mode network. This is where activities occur when you're thinking about things, you're daydreaming. There's an area within the default mode network called the lateral habenula. This bursting mechanism occurs when you've got this negative story, this negative mental chatter, just repeating over and over and over again. That's that bursting mechanism. Well, ketamine stops it immediately. And so that is one of the primary reasons why ketamine treatments are so effective for people who are experiencing suicidal ideation, suicidal thoughts. Because as you well know, Sherry, with most psychiatric medications, people are coming to us, with suicidal thoughts. Those medications can take anywhere from 2 to 8 weeks to bring any kind of effective relief. And that's if it brings any effective relief. So,
and let me tell you, suicidal patients don't have 2 to 8 weeks.
They don't. They don't have 2 to 8 weeks. That's where it's like, ketamine is such a cost-effective, easy way to help stop that bursting mechanism and help bring immediate relief to people. So it's a wonderful way to. It's that third. Let's go back to that third of our population with treatment-resistant depression, or those not getting proper relief from chronic pain, or their PTSD. Addiction. And there's so many things that this is helping people with. So it's an honor to be a part of it.
Oh, I love it. Carey Lee, you are a stigma fighter, and literally, doing, these research and development on the side with other nurses. We're really, we're sourcing out what patients want and need, and we're here to bring it to them. And we know that cannabinoids and these other, plant entheogens and psychedelics, certain pharmaceuticals can really help bridge the gap from what people aren't getting from conventional medicine. And the other thing that a lot of people don't know too is, I'm just going to mention it because it's here in the notes. Cannabinoids are neuroprotectants. The United States government has a patent, 6630507, right? So really, really important, to know that, this stuff is real. It exists. It's here. And we're here to help. We're here to share stories, compelling stories of healing. And, in everything that you've written here, I love what you wrote here, about some of the other psychedelics, like psilocybin is also known to promote the elevation of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, right? And just getting into that, cannabinoids and psychedelics can help. These are proteins that are found in the brain that promote the growth, development, and maintenance of these new neurons in our brain, right? You got to figure we're creating cells all the time, right? And so when you are creating these new cells, you want to create healthy cells, right? So it makes sense that you want to nourish
and keep them healthy So absolutely.
And I'll give like a little switch. I'm going to give a little example of the endocannabinoid system with PTSD and the fight or flight response. So if you imagine, here's just an example. If you imagine, you're triggered by something, something in the environment that you feel threatened by, you have this physiological response that triggers that panic or fear, right? And the endocannabinoid system switches on and produces these internal endogenous cannabinoids, anandamide and 2-AG, to shower on our body, to turn the adrenaline switch on. Whoop! I'm scared. Adrenaline switch goes on. It floods all of these chemicals to keep us safe and protected. When the fear or the panic or the stimulus that triggered that situation is gone, the endocannabinoid system switches off, gives a message to tell the adrenaline to shut off. It's time for you to shut off. The danger is gone. Now, if you're not producing enough of your own internal endogenous cannabinoids, what happens? That switch may not turn off, and you're going to continue to be in fight or flight. You're going to continue to produce the cortisol, right? And as we know, this is a stress hormone, and this stress hormone affects multiple other physiological systems at the exact same time, right? So cannabis is a great, great tool to help quiet down, help our body to adapt to stress. CBD in particular, I think everyone should have a bottle of CBD.
Absolutely. I agree with you 1,000% on that.
A bottle of CBD, full spectrum CBD, a topical, and a vape. Seriously, this is like
I love the vape. I don't care who. You know what? If inhalation is wrong, I don't want to be right. It's the quickest way to get relief. Rescue people. Don't judge.
Don't judge. The 6th National Council State Boards of Nursing says the nurse shall not judge the patient in regards to the preferred method of treatment, and that includes inhalation. And I am a big 100% proponent of inhalation. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to be speaking on it later this year at a conference, because inhalation, like Carey Lee said, is immediately. You can get relief, 1 or 2 puffs, crosses the blood-brain barrier, affects those CB1 receptors in the brain, and starts the physiological response of quieting down. And for a lot of patients, we've seen that immediate response. I've seen suicidal patients become not suicidal in 10 minutes from inhaling.
Absolutely. And there are products out there, not just fully THC rich products. You can get the CBD, vapes. You can also get different ratios. 1-to-1 is one of my absolute favorite vape products. It's what I use during the day, especially. During the winter, if I'm stuck here in Iowa in the winter, that 1-to-1 vape, it goes everywhere with me during the winter. Absolutely.
I know, I love it. So if we're going to talk about inhalation, I'll just kind of promote a little bit. So I just want to say a big shout out to Robin Swan. Robin Swan has Firebird Touch Therapy. She came to visit us this weekend, and she has this little vape. Love all, serve all. I'll put it in the comments, Firebird Therapy. And this is an amazing CBD vape. It's a full spectrum CBD vape.
Nice.
Really like it. Durban Poison. It's a little sativa, which is great. CBD is amazing. It really is amazing. You don't need a lot of THC. Trust me, I'm a THC fan. I love my THC, but you don't need a lot of it. You really don't. And we've been learning and studying too, and even microdosing, psilocybin has really helped a lot of people decrease their need to use so much THC, because these mushrooms act as adaptogens, right? Act as adaptogens in our body. Really, really powerful stuff. So let's we're about to wrap up soon. I think I have a visitor that wants to come and end the show with us. She's going to come out in a few minutes, but let's talk about the Heart Talk Poetic Wisdom for a Better Life. I really like this.
This is one of my favorite books on the planet. I love Cleo Wade. So this poem, I actually read it this morning. It says, "And then I realized that to be more alive, I had to be less afraid. So I did it. I lost my fear and gained my whole life. Allow today to be fearless. What does your day look like without fear? What are the words holding you back because of fear? What are the dreams you're not making into reality because of fear? Free yourself of those fears. Give yourself a chance to see what you can really do." I thought it was beautiful.
That is beautiful, Care Bear. It is.
Oh my gosh.
Listen, we all deserve to feel good. I deserve to feel good. You deserve to feel good, right? We all deserve to live our best lives, and that can look different for everyone. So really give your chance to see what you can really do. Here we are as cannabis nurses. We're also cannabis patients, advocates, and activists, and we share compelling stories of healing. We share our own stories of healing. Why? Because we care. Why?
That's right.
Because we know it works. Why? Because we have a conscience. We have a moral, ethical obligation to share with our viewers and the patients that we care for and people that come to us on anything and everything that could possibly help someone live a better quality of life. Very grateful. Let me do a quick shout out to my girlfriend, Elizabeth, and see if she's in the house. She wants to say,
I love it. Where's EMAC?
Yeah, hold on. EMAC. Here she comes. All right.
I can hear some banging and clanging back there. No, I'm just kidding.
Clanging and banging. Here she comes. So here we go. We got Elizabeth Mack, who is the CEO and founder of Holistic Caring.
Hello, everybody. Hey, Carey Lee.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Oh, it's charming to see you. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday to you as well.
Yeah. So we were just wrapping up the show on agoraphobia and how cannabis and psychedelics can really, really help improve a patient's quality of life, can help them work through, help them work through these refractory conditions that medications, pills, and procedures don't work.
Especially agoraphobia. Pills and procedures don't really work for that, does it?
No,
Yeah,
it doesn't.
so.
But they do have, but in combination.
Yeah.
So we look at.
Well, that's what we always teach people. It's complementary medicine. It's
Right.
not either or, right?
Yeah.
How do we coexist and maximize the benefits and minimize the harms of every part of what we do?
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. So what do we got going on at Holistic Caring?
Oh, lots
This
of good
month.
stuff.
What's happening? Go ahead.
Well, what month is it? It's June, which means it's still Men's Health Month. So we've got our men's program, or our men's discount. Men 25 allows somebody to save 25% off the Holistic Wellness CBD Wellness Coach. And what that is the basics of the endocannabinoid system, how this works in the body, and how CBD can help boost wellness and some of the other lifestyle things that all of these nurses talk about, like on the 5 to Thrive.
Daily 5 to Thrive.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then we do have a quick little special. We want to do this one too.
Which other one?
It's activated. The Nurse 25.
Oh, well, just for Sherry's podcast audience at the Green Nurse, we'll just extend our Nurse 25 sale on all of the professional programs. So if you're a nurse out there and you want to take one of our fine programs from the CWC, the wellness coach, to the industry professional, to the healthcare coach, to the licensing program, sign up today and take 25% off with Nurse 25.
Oh, thank
Wow.
you.
High five to that, Elizabeth. That's awesome. Thank you for that. Wow.
Yeah.
Really, really good.
You're welcome.
And then what else do we have going on? We have, so tomorrow we have our mentor, right? We have our mentoring at 12 p.m.
Mastermind. Yep.
Mastermind
Yep.
mentoring on men's health.
Come into the network.
Yep.
If you're a member of the Holistic Caring Network and you're already in and you want to come and listen, I'll let you in even if you're not a licensee. Well, why don't we do that?
Yeah,
for tomorrow?
anyone can come in.
Just for fun, just to get some more people in there.
There we go.
I'm feeling all kinds of good today.
Wow, you're like Santa Claus over there, girl. What you got over there for me? I'm just kidding.
I'm just drinking a Coke. Yeah, I'm all wired out now.
Yeah, coffee, cannabis, right? Exactly. So the Holistic Caring Network that Elizabeth created. So it's off of social media. It's an amazing network. It's run by nurses. Yeah. She's created a free introductory to cannabis course, free for anyone. There's an introductory to cannabis course, patient portal, support group, the webcast, the podcast, and a connection to nurses, providers, and patients across the globe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the free introductory course. What is cannabis? Mm-hmm. What is CBD? How does it work in the body? What is the endocannabinoid system? What is this lock and key receptors and compounds that activate and bring us back into balance? What is this? So we talk about all of that, and it's free for all of you in the network.
It is, absolutely. So this has been an awesome show, y'all. Next Wednesday, Care Bear. Carey Lee Leur, she is the Daily 5 to Thrive, Soul Thrive, Green Nurse Supervisor at Holistic Caring, and also the Director of Nursing at KetaMd. Powerhouse nurse.
We love you, Carey Lee.
We do.
Oh, I love you. I love you.
Yeah, it's an honor to watch you just run along and skate through life.
Oh my gosh, no pun intended.
Of course, I know you love skating.
Yeah, and she's really
definitely.
Too. So join us tomorrow in the network for Men's Health. I'm going to put a link up below when we're done with this podcast. And then also next Wednesday night, I have Nicole Ryan on. Nicole Ryan is from Hemp Quest. Mm-hmm.
Another good guest. Yeah.
Another really, really good guest. She
is awesome. You not want to miss that show.
No. Another wonderful story.
Another wonderful story.
Wonderful story.
Yeah. Another nurse who's changing lives, another nurse whose compelling story of healing propelled her to start her business. And she is truly a leader in the cannabis space as a nurse.
Yeah, I mean, from the get-go, she knew when she got her nursing license, she wanted to work in natural botanical medicine. So kudos to you.
Kudos to you. And I gave a big shout out to Robin with the vape.
Yeah, that's a great CBD vape. Anybody looking
vape.
For a great CBD vape, definitely visit the Blue Buddha for that.
Blue Buddha, and I'll put
Blue
that link up as
Buddha
well.
CBD. Yeah.
Yep. So thank you, Robin. Thank you, Carey Lee, and thank you for popping in, Nurse Elizabeth.
You're
totally
welcome.
appreciate it. You all, thank you so much for joining us. Please, if you heard something in this video that reached you, if you felt something, share it. Share it with others. Give the gift of the green nurse. Right?
Sharing is caring. Sharing is caring.
And we call Carey Care Bear, and I'm Share Bear, and we got Elizabeth.
Yeah, and these fine nurses are seeing patients at holisticcaring.com. So if you know somebody that needs a consult, give the gift of one to somebody that you're talking to, and they can have a one-on-one deep dive with one of these two lovely nurses.
Exactly.
Awesome.
And in the comment section too, I put Carey Lee's link so you can book directly with her.
There you go.
All right.
Sweet.
So remember, everyone, this has been a great podcast. Very grateful. Remember what it's all about, truly. It's about living your best life and helping others do the same. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow and next week. We're here to educate and empower patients to make choices that are best for them. We're also here to decrease stigma around what it means to feel good and be high. Hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing. The Green Nurse is a holistic cannabis nurse that teaches on the endocannabinoid system and the safe utilization of cannabis and other progressive tools to help people reach a better quality of life.
I was cannabis agnostic for many, many years. And you know, the more research I did, the more I discovered that cannabis is this amazing medicine.
I was told that I had a 4-stage pancreatic cancer. The doctor really told me he couldn't do anything else. He gave me her name and she called me and she came to my house. She started to give me cannabis. My oncologist was puzzled because he couldn't find the cancer anymore.
All of the learning that we get comes from the Green Nurses Group, comes from their support, comes from their guidance. I trust everything that she says.
Simply meet people where they're at. The plant doesn't, stress to grow, so we don't stress to share it. We're healing people.
Cannabis has been used as a medicine for tens upon thousands of years. Here's the big message. Cannabis needs to be federally legal. We need to have laws that are the same across all 50 states that allow access to anyone and everyone who wants to utilize this powerful medicine.